So more information has been revealed about that Apple Watch. And the pricing starts at $350 and goes to... The pricing starts at $350. It goes to... Let's back up a bit. Apple has had the reputation of being expensive, you know, with their products and such. And they just knocked it out of the park with this one. I can say it. It starts at $350. Like, I thought that was a little much for a watch to begin with. And then it goes to 17 grand. Okay, that's $17,000. There's a lot of things you could do with $17,000. You could buy a car. You could have rent money. You could buy the highest end Mac Pro there is. The highest end iMac there is. And the specs on each version of the watch are all the same. So the Apple Edition, the only difference between it and the $350 one is the material it's made out of, which I don't feel like would change your interface very much. But in all honesty, people are going to buy that. And Apple knows they're not going to sell a lot of them. That's the thing though, they don't have to. Because it's $17,000. They know what they are. They know they're overpriced and they're like, we don't care. We make money either way. Okay, I'm gonna try to continue this video with all seriousness about the Apple Watch. Apple Watch Sport starts at $350. So if you're gonna get it, that's probably the one most people are gonna get. Then there's the regular middle Apple Watch, which is around $550. Made of aluminum, and I think the biggest difference is the sapphire display. If you don't know what that is, it's the second hardest material to diamond, which basically means your watch won't shatter. On the Apple Watch Sport, it's more possible because it's made out of the same material of an iPhone display, Gorilla Glass. And the Apple Watch Smart? That's not it. The Apple Watch Sport is made out of aluminum. Then the regular Apple Watch out of steel. Then Apple Edition out of 18 karat gold. Why? Because why not? They're like, we're gonna hand make them and people will buy it. We'll just make them cost $17,000. Wouldn't surprise me if it was gold plated and the amount of gold required is only like $300, but then they just overprice it. Oh, okay. Anyway, the Apple Watch. To me, it's brought down to a notification delivery system for your iPhone. Since an iPhone is required with it, that does make it an accessory to the iPhone. But it also has a lot of health stuff, so it's not just a notification deliverer, but that's what you're going to be using it for the most. It's got a heart rate monitor. It taps you when you've been sitting too long, or it notifies you stuff, and then you can use Siri to dictate back to people. It's a cool premise. It's all that you'd expect in a smartwatch. And because it has that Apple logo on it, people are going to buy it. Now, obviously, it's going through a lot of hate right now. Tons of people are making fun of it. And in all honesty, I don't feel like it should be getting good press, but there's a few other Apple products that were hated on at their release. The iPad. Many of you may have forgotten, but tons of people thought the iPad was ridiculous because it didn't have a USB port on it. They said the screen was low resolution. The core and the RAM, it was terrible on the first generation iPad. Therefore, this would be Apple's biggest flop of all time. And we were wrong. A year later, iPad 2 came out. Specs were getting better. Design was better. Still no USB port because Apple knew we didn't need that. And you notice all the other tablets in today's market don't have one either. And if they do, they're not popular. Another product that was hated on at its time. The iPhone. Who would pay $600 for a computer that goes in your pocket? Who would want that? Oh, actually, everyone who is in possession of $200 wants that. And now it's the biggest selling product they've ever had. You may not remember this, but the iPhone did suffer a lot of hate at its time for being tremendously expensive and unnecessary. It's hard to say, but I'm leaning towards the idea that the Apple Watch is gonna go through the same process. We're all looking at it right now going, this is useless. Who would want that? It's overpriced. But I think it might be the next big thing for Apple. It's gonna explode out of proportion and we're gonna realize we can't live without it. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong because Steve Jobs didn't have much to do with the watch. This is Apple's first shot without him. So this is Apple's true test, is can they do it without Steve Jobs. I think they're following their core beliefs, so I'm gonna guess yes. Am I buying one though? Here's the thing, I never think it's a good idea to buy the first generation of any new product lineup. If you bought the first iPad, you're gonna look like an idiot eventually. I know there was those people out there that paid for the 64 gig cellular first generation iPad. Right now that thing is a dinosaur and it crashes and it's useless. I think this is because on the first generation of a product, they're just trying to see, can they do it? Can we make this and give it to the people? First generation iPad and iPhone were both like, can this be done? And how does it do? Once they learned from the first generation iPhone and first generation iPad, they had time to perfect it in the following year. So no, I'm not going to get this first generation Apple Watch. I actually think it's a little bulky, which you don't hear a lot coming from Apple, but it does look big. And there's another thing that's scaring me away is that they haven't told us the resolution of the screen. That may not be a big deal to you, but I'd like a nice screen. I'd feel like the value of it would greatly decrease if you could see the pixels on it, and they haven't said Retina display. And if they haven't said the resolution or said anything about the display, that probably means it's not the best. They didn't tell us anything about the first generation iPad. It's display wise. You could look up the tech specs and realize the screen is like, oh, it's just kind of average. And probably due to its new style of processor, and they haven't quite figured out how to pack this much computer into a single space, it's probably going to be a bit laggy, maybe sometimes not responsive to the touches, and it's not waterproof. So this first generation I think is a good experiment, and tons of people are going to buy it, I know for sure. All the Apple worshippers out there, and people who just think it's really cool and can afford it, you know, why not? And the people who buy the Apple edition, there's actually a College Humor video on it that said everyone is gonna know exactly how much it costs, so they know exactly how much you paid for it. Which is a good point, and I think rich people will buy it, just to say they have it. But they will look like idiots later. Anywho, I'm not gonna buy this generation, however, next year on the Apple Watch 2, I'm expecting it to be a bit thinner and then to fix a lot of the bugs and problems this first one's gonna have. And I will seriously consider the Apple Watch. The Apple Watch 2 I will definitely consider purchasing. The sport one, the cheap one. I'm hoping the price goes down to $200. That's a bit more reasonable. I mean, it's a watch and it's not waterproof. If I reach into a sink without thinking, it would just die. I mean, that's a lot of money on your wrist. I don't need the sapphire crystal display, personally. Put that on the phone. The watch is on my wrist. Why would I drop it? It's not gonna shatter. You're not just putting your hands on a desk and then all of a sudden, oops! Oh, the watch broke. That's not gonna happen. So those are my thoughts on the Apple Watch. I'm sure there's a lot of haters of it out there. What do you think? Am I wrong? Possibly, or possibly not. Let me know in the comments below. See ya.